I somehow have a feeling that the world was always broken. The world was always breaking and repairing itself. I must say the odds for me when I was a young man to get to the point where I am today were not that great. In order to survive, it was indispensable to have 10 miracles. And yet there is this Chinese saying about chance. Chance is like the sound of the wings of a bird that flies by behind the back of a blind man. Chance. Imagine what the blind man has to catch the bird. Now, I caught the bird. I caught the bird. Lately, I try to explain to people that I'm doing conceptual art. In a sense that I paint it in a technique of maybe classical art or the Renaissance. But what I paint is a kind of realistic description of an imagination that is using objects that are familiar to us from everyday life and tries to turn them into metaphors, into icons, into a narrative material. What I try also to achieve in my work is a certain dimension of timelessness. I mean, not make an art that is very given moment in history. For instance, when I describe a landscape where a catastrophe has happened, I do not want to speak of a very specific catastrophe, but I want to speak of man's having to perpetrate continuously in his history destruction. I was born in 1933. This is one of those dates that remains in history, not because of me, but because Hitler arrived then to power. So I was born in Vilnius, today the capital of Lithuania. At that time was Polish. The war came into my life with a big bang. And the Big Bang was a house that was bombed just next to our house. After the destruction of the house, the German army that entered the town, and very shortly after that, my father was taken away. A couple of weeks after that, there was banging on the door, and 2 Lithuanian policemen came to take my mother and me to the ghetto. I somehow have a feeling that the world was always broken. The world was always breaking and repairing itself. I mean, you just look at any book of history and it will tell you about this breaking that goes on, and repairing that goes on, and this is part of the human condition, and this is why transcending the very personal experience of the Holocaust that I have because I happened to be born in a certain time, in a certain place, I would say is, for me, a very important thing. A very important thing. It took years for me to come to terms with all these things that the Big Bang of my life brought to me, and I must say it left something in me, but also an incredible sense of appreciation of this miracle of life that was given to me, and trying to do something meaningful with that very precious thing. I think that to live in a world where no absolute truth exists is not an easy affair. I mean, I live in a world in which there is a terrible reality of war going on between people, because for every person there is its own truth. Look at what has happened only in our century. These horrible wars. People are struggling because absolute truth does not exist. Because in life maybe compromise is the only key to how we can manage. Myself being on one hand this kind of God-fearing atheist, I love this idea of this universe, of this something that is greater than ourselves, of this something that we cannot grasp with our means, which is not, after all, that very important that we grasp. Hope is another wonderful subject. I cannot imagine the world existing and the people doing what they are doing in order to save our race from extinction without believing that there is a hope for some solution. Hope, it is such a basic thing in our life. We cannot live without hope. I mean, if there is no hope, there is absolutely no life. There is no desire to continue. There is, I think, and yet we know how very often hope can be a complete denial of reality. It can be as well a wonderful thing that preserves you. It can be a destructive thing. So all these things that contain contradictions in themselves, these are the ones that are really human, because I think that finally every person wants something and its opposite, and it is in our nature.